Well, good morning to you again.
Good morning.
This morning we are looking into the Gospel of Luke to get the foundation for what the purpose, what the meaning of Palm Sunday is all about. So you may have looked at the bulletin this morning and said, oh, he flubbed up. He's calling it Palm Monday. Well, that's the title for this morning's message, because who knows? It reminds me of that lame joke about the thermos. Keeps it hot. It keeps it cold. How does it know? Even if Palm Sunday was on Sunday, it really wasn't a holy day for them, was it? Because their holy day, the Sabbath, was on a Saturday. When Jesus rode into town on a small donkey, he did so on a day that was a work day. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, it just wasn't Saturday. So it was not a day off. It was a work day for everyone. Like our Monday is the beginning of the week. It's a work day for us. And for one time, this beginning of the week was not a humdrum day. This beginning of the week was not one of those unexciting days. For us, it would be Monday. For them, it would be Sunday. Because God had plans. Something huge was going to happen. Okay, this is Palm Sunday. But given that Jesus' entry was 2,000 years ago, it's not really important whether it was Sunday or Monday. It was the beginning of the week. And what took place was an opportunity for God to introduce to God's people and the world something special, something important that was about to happen. You might say, well, Pastor, let's just look at the Bible. It's covered in all four of the Gospels, right? Well, Palm Sunday is covered. Well, anyway, Jesus coming to Jerusalem is covered, but neither any of the Gospels say anything about what day of the week it is, except John gives us a clue. In the 12th chapter of John, he indicates that Jesus came to Jerusalem 6 days before Passover. And then in the next line, he says that after Jesus visited Mary, Martha, and Lazarus, he went to Jerusalem on the next day. Those are clues that kind of give it away. Did it happen on the Sabbath? No. But depending on what calendar you look at, it really comes down to one thing. It's a tradition-based assumption. It's what we say because God was not clear on when. But let's don't get bogged down with the details of what day, because it really doesn't matter. What really matters is that Jesus came riding in on a donkey to be the king.
Amen.
Not necessarily what they thought was the king, but to be the king. The story we use this year comes out of the Gospel of Luke, the 19th chapter, 28 through 40. I'm going to cover the microphone so it doesn't record. This week I'm going to read the right scripture. If you were with us last week, I had a wonderful time all up here all by myself, reading what was in the Bible. Not necessarily what related to my message, but I was reading right out of the Bible. So this morning, we're going to look at Luke 19, 28 through 40. Most Bibles call it the triumphal entry. How could we go wrong with that? Going up into Jerusalem, as he approached Bethphage and Bethany at the hill called the Mount of Olives, He sent two of his disciples, saying to them, "Go into the village ahead of you, and as you enter it, you will find a colt tied there, which no one has ever ridden. Untie it and bring it here. If anyone asks you, 'What are you doing?' tell them, 'The Lord needs it.'" And those who were sent ahead went and found just as he had told them. And as they were untying the colt, its owner said, "Why are you untying my colt?" And they replied, "The Lord needs it." And they brought it to Jesus, threw their cloaks on the colt, and put Jesus on it. As he went along, people spread their cloaks on the road. And when he came near the place where the road goes down the Mount of Olives, the whole crowd of disciples began joyfully to praise God in loud voices for all the miracles they had seen. "Blessed is the King who comes in the name of the Lord, peace in heaven and glory in the highest." Some of the Pharisees in the crowd said to Jesus, "Teacher, rebuke your disciples." "I tell you," he replied, "if they kept quiet, the stones would cry out." It is the word of God for the people of God.
Thanks be to God.
Thanks be to God. So again, let's don't get bogged down with the details of what day or what hour or what place. Some biblical scholars have suggested that it did take place on Monday, Palm Monday, instead of Palm Sunday. But of course, what day of the week matters so little. The people were rejoicing because Jesus came into Jerusalem preceding Passover. Sabbath for the Jews was sundown Friday to sundown Saturday. Any time other than that was not a holy day. And if it was, Sunday was still a work day, not a religious day. It would have been like our Monday, the beginning of the week. It was time to get ready. It was the time to do the chores you needed to do, go to the market, clean up the house, wash the clothes, repair the ox cart, get the bread. Because you see, it was the beginning of the week before Passover. People from all over the world were coming in to Jerusalem at that very time. It was a time of celebration, a time of remembrance. And they came from everywhere. And the city grew in number. And those who were there were getting ready, preparing. There were plenty of things to do. Jesus did come for Passover, but he also came for two other things. He intentionally came to make twin demonstrations. First, a demonstration against the Roman imperial control over the city of peace. Romans were in charge. He was against that. And second, it was a demonstration against the Roman imperial control over the temple. We know several things about Jerusalem. It was where God found his place, and it housed the temple of the Lord. And for those two reasons, Jesus intentionally picked that time when it was filling to maximum potential to make a statement against the tyranny of Rome and against the governor Pilate and his high priest Caiaphas. Jesus intentionally went with this very public entry into Jerusalem on a donkey for those reasons. So picture in your mind, if you will, here's Jesus coming in one gate of the city on a donkey with the crowds around and throwing the palms in their cloaks down. And on the other entrance, coming from Caesarea, would be Pilate, coming to prepare for the Passover celebration, because knowing that the town of Jerusalem would swell to more than maybe 1 million people, he brought troops to maintain order. Jesus was on a donkey. Pilate was on a black war horse. We can't ignore protesters who put themselves in legal jeopardy, maybe even risk physical violence. To say to the government, to say to the world, something is not right. You are not being fair to the common people. This does not please God. And that's why Pilate came. Because there were rebel rousers in the crowd to say that they were not being treated fairly. So I have some things that I would ask you to ponder for a moment. What issues would Jesus want to have on our hearts for this Palm Sunday, Palm Monday, Palm celebration? When Jesus rides into our life, either on a Sunday or a Monday or whatever day, he forces an issue for us, decisions for us to make. Because you're either with God or not. And secondly, he calls us to make decisions to follow him, to trust him, maybe even to confront the injustice of our times, to expose the danger, to challenge arrogance that rides over other people and the hearts of the faithful. You see, Jesus didn't just ride in on a donkey for no reason. He came to make statements. Statements of faith. Statements of journey. Faith journeys. Destinations. Some people would be worried, nervous. Have you ever gotten nervous because you had to get up in front of a crowd of people? I mean, we have a crowd of people here, but when I'm talking about a crowd of people, I'm talking about a crowd of people. Millions of people. I had one of those flashes. But on the time of my ordination, we were in Lakeland at the arena, and the bishop was there and all the staff, and nearly 4,000 people. And I had been given the honor to start a church from scratch, and we want just a message from you, Pastor Kim. Don't make it long, because we're going to be there for a week. But just, this is your ordination time. This is the time as a new start pastor you can share a little of your vision, a little of the ministry that you have. I prepared, I was ready. I stood up, and there's 4,000 people waiting for me to speak. Have you ever gotten nervous in front of a crowd? I do remember my first words. So this is what it's like to have a big congregation. I don't know that they heard anything else. And Jesus wasn't worried about big crowds, was he? He preached to 5,000. He fed maybe 10 or 15,000 people with 2 fish and 5 loaves. Crowds didn't bother him. But not everyone in the crowd that was there were there for the right reasons. So ponder these things as we go through. There were 5 different crowds within that one big crowd. The first crowd is the curious crowd. They'd seen Jesus teach and heal and perform miracles. They'd heard of him for the last 3 years as he was in his ministry and his mission. And they were curious. That's number 1. Number 2 is there's a confused crowd that was there. When Jesus came to Jerusalem, everyone was excited to see him come in because they had questions. Who is this Jesus? Even though they were following there, they were in the crowd, they were confused as to who he really was. Then there's the third group. They are what I would call the pretenders. They were in the crowd to see Jesus, and they were pretending to be committed to Jesus. Like they made their decision. We're not only followers, we're committed to Jesus. And then there was another group called the opposers. The opposers are the ones that were there because they had their own agenda. They had their own ideas of the way things were supposed to be. They were there to tear down the things of God. Like the Pharisees and the Sadducees. Let's just leave things the way they are. Not so bad. I have my new Cadillac, my nice house. I have my beautiful suits. Let's just leave things the way they are. Let's don't muddy the water. And then there was the fifth group. The fifth group are the ones I would refer to as truly committed. Most people say they are. Most people say, I'm in that group. But here's the dilemma. Of the 5 groups, the smallest group is the one of the people who are truly committed. 5 groups. Curious, confused, pretenders, opposers, committed. You know what my last question is?
Are you committed?
Which group are you in? I kind of think that the 12 disciples, in that very time frame, the week before Passover and the things that were going on, I think that those 12 would wish they could, retrospect, wish they could have been in a different group than they were. Because they were curious and they were confused. You might say that sometimes they pretended. Some of them opposed. Don't you think that as the things worked out, they would say to you, they would say to me, you would say to God, I'm in the committed group. But it all depends on who you say Jesus is and who you have chosen to be. So what group are you in? And all the children say, Amen. Amen.